Have you ever had that feeling? You look at your paycheck, maybe it's even gone up a little, but when you go to the store or pay your bills, it feels like you're actually falling behind. Well, that's the feeling we're diving into today, that global squeeze between what we earn and what it actually costs to live.
And it all starts with stories like this one. This quote. It just cuts right to the heart of it all. This isn't about numbers in a report. It's about the real, agonizing choices people are making every single day. Choosing between eating, heating, or having a roof over their head, even when they're earning what we call a living wage. So here's how we're going to unpack this. We'll start right there with that daily squeeze. Then we'll look at the solution everyone talks about, just raising wages. After that, we'll introduce the real villain of the story, inflation, and see how what happens in the US economy sends waves across the entire planet. And finally, we'll get into the tough choice at the center of everything. Okay, so when people are finding it hard to get by, the most obvious answer seems simple, right? Just pay them more. Governments do it all the time. They raise the minimum wage. But is a simple pay raise really enough to solve the problem?
Let's look at a real-world example from the UK. These are the planned minimum wage hikes for 2026. You can see the main rate for adults is going up by about 4%. But check this out. For younger workers, the jump is actually much bigger, sometimes over 8%. That's a huge deal for them.
Now, the strategy here is really important. The idea isn't just to put a bigger number on someone's paycheck. The goal is to make the raise bigger than the expected rise in prices, bigger than inflation. That way, workers get what's called a real terms pay raise. It means their money should actually buy more stuff.
And that, right there, is the million-dollar question. What good is more money in your pocket if the price of gas, groceries, and rent goes up right along with it, or maybe even faster? This is where we meet the invisible force that can make you feel like you're running in place.
Let's talk about the main antagonist in this whole story, inflation. We hear the word thrown around all the time on the news, but its effect is something we all feel in our own wallets.
This image really says it all, doesn't it? Inflation is like a silent thief that just eats away at the value of your money. Every single dollar, pound, or euro you have buys just a little bit less today than it did yesterday.
So what is it exactly? Well, put simply, inflation is when the prices for almost everything, we're talking food, cars, housing, you name it, are all going up, and they stay up over a period of time. It's not just one thing getting more expensive, it's everything. And what inflation really attacks is your purchasing power. This is the key concept. It's not about how much cash you have, it's about what that cash can actually buy for you in the real world.
Let me give you a super simple example. Imagine your weekly grocery run used to cost you $100. Now, for that exact same cart of stuff, you're paying $120. That's your purchasing power going down. Your money just doesn't stretch as far. And this is exactly where a local problem starts to become a global one.
Because here's the thing, no economy exists in a bubble. And when the world's biggest economy, the United States, makes a big move, everybody, and I mean everybody, feels the ripples.
This quote from one of our sources just nails the dynamic. It means the price hikes we feel in our local stores often start way higher up the supply chain, and sometimes they start in a completely different country. So, how does that even work?
Well, it's basically a three-step domino effect. First, something happens in the US that makes it more expensive for companies to make things. Step 2, other countries that import those American goods now have to pay that higher price. And finally, step 3, those higher costs get passed all the way down the line, to you.
Now, to fight its own inflation, the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, pulls out its biggest weapon. It raises interest rates. The idea is to make borrowing money more expensive, which should slow down spending, cool the economy, and hopefully bring prices back down. But that one action has huge global side effects.
And you can see the impact right here. When the US raises rates, it often pressures other countries to do the same thing. Just look at these borrowing costs for major emerging economies. We're talking around 13% in Brazil. Rates that high can seriously slam the brakes on economic growth.
This slide really breaks down the chain reaction. See, higher US interest rates act like a giant magnet for money. Investors from all over the world pull their cash out of other countries to chase those better returns in the US. This makes the US dollar super strong, but it weakens everyone else's currency. And for those nations, that's a double whammy.
It now costs them way more to import essentials like food and fuel.
So all of this leads to a fundamental dilemma, a really difficult trade-off for pretty much every government on the planet. When you try to fix one major economic problem, you often risk making another one worse.
It all boils down to this: choosing between two kinds of economic pain. On one side, you've got inflation, which chips away at everyone's savings and paycheck. On the other side, you have the main weapon to fight inflation, slowing down the economy, which can lead to unemployment. And while inflation hurts everyone a little, losing your job is a personal catastrophe.
So let's bring it back to the people we started with. For the lowest earners, the ones who are already on the edge, which of these two threats is the scarier one?
Well, it turns out the research on this is pretty clear. A study from Lund University found that when you ask the poorest households, they are much more worried about unemployment than they are about inflation. And if you think about it, that makes total sense. If you're living paycheck to paycheck with no savings, inflation is a huge problem for sure. But the sudden, complete loss of a job? That's an existential crisis. Having an income, even one that buys a little less each month, is infinitely better than having no income at all. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. We started by looking at a local solution, raising the minimum wage. But as we've seen, that local wage is immediately caught in a global economic storm. It really makes you wonder, in a world this connected, can any country truly solve the cost of living crisis all on its own?